Good afternoon, beautiful people, and happy Friday. Today is the big day. Tish James arraigned in Virginia for the mortgage fraud case. We're going to dig into three major stories, all orbiting around New York Attorney General Letitia James, and we'll look at them through the lens of accountability, process, and yes, power. We'll start with her mortgage fraud hearing in Virginia, then move into her challenge of the U.S. Attorney's appointment, and we'll wrap up with her response to a controversial immigration enforcement raid in New York City. My goal is to show you how these aren't isolated headlines, but pieces of a larger pattern and why that matters. Welcome to Nellie Miranda. So let's kick off with the mortgage fraud story. Yesterday, Letitia James headed to Virginia for what's being called a mortgage fraud hearing.
Good morning, Miss James. Miss James, do you have any comments with the ICE raids happening downtown? Does the AG's office have any opportunity to do any?
We sent out information. We need video. Thank you.
As always, please make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel. Okay, Letitia James has been indicted on 2 federal charges, 1 count of bank fraud and 1 of making false statements to a financial institution. Specifically, prosecutors allege that the home that she purchased in Norfolk, Virginia in 2020 was represented as a primary or second residence in order to secure favorable mortgage terms. But they say it was really being used as a rental investment property. Think about that for a second. A public official whose office has aggressively pursued mortgage and bank fraud cases now finds herself accused of a similar scheme. That raises serious red flags, and if you're going to occupy the moral high ground, you better make sure you're not standing on one crack.
New York Attorney General Letitia James is set to make her first court appearance today after being indicted on federal charges.
The state's top Democrats are rallying behind her. Christina Fan joins us live with more. Christina.
Mary and Cindy, good morning. Letitia James is the third adversary of President Trump to face a judge on federal charges in recent weeks. She will be making her first court appearance at 11 this morning in Norfolk, Virginia, after she was indicted earlier this month on 2 felony charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution in connection with a home purchase in 2020. James drew Trump's ire when she won a staggering judgment against the president and his company in a lawsuit alleging he defrauded banks by overstating the value of his real estate holdings. She previously called the indictment a, quote, desperate weaponization of our justice system.
Now, the obvious, she is innocent until proven guilty, and yes, timing matters. The indictment comes at a politically intense moment, but again, principle demands that we hold this standard even-handedly. Here's something else. The reported savings allegedly secured by the misrepresentation weren't massive compared to major fraud cases, around $18,000 to $19,000 from interest savings. But size doesn't always determine importance. The optics do. Not to mention, it appears to be a 4-way classification fraud, but we'll park that aside. When you are the person who said that no one is above the law, the question becomes, does the law apply to you too? Or do you live by rules for thee, but not for me? And that is exactly where trust begins to erode. Once again, standing on those courthouse steps this morning, Letitia James doubled down, saying she is not bowing, not bending, and definitely not breaking. Take a listen to what she said earlier.
But this is not about me. This is about all of us. And about a justice system which has been weaponized. This justice system which has been used as a tool of revenge, a weapon against those individuals who simply did their job and who stood up for the rule of law. And a justice system which unfortunately is nothing being used as a vehicle of retribution. Yeah. But my faith is strong. Yeah. And my faith is, I have this belief in the justice system, in the rule of law, and I have a belief in America and all of its individuals who have stood with me, not only in New York, but all across this nation. Yeah. 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 I've heard from just about every jurisdiction in this nation who have said stand up and be tall and never ever cow down or back down or break or bend. So there's no fear today, because I believe that justice will rain down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Preach. And I'm here to say that my work and my job and all that I do, all throughout my public career, I've stood up for the rights of New Yorkers and Americans, and I will not be deterred.
Did you all hear the gentleman at the end? That's a lie. But let's move on to the question of who is prosecuting this case and whether the prosecutor is legit. Letitia James' legal team is signaling a plan to challenge the appointment of Lindsay Halligan as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. According to the filings, they claim her appointment was defective, and thus the indictment against James might be invalid.
In just a few hours from now, New York Attorney General Letitia James will face a federal judge in Virginia. James is set to be arraigned on charges of alleged mortgage fraud. A rally was held tonight in Foley Square in support of the Attorney General. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger has details on that and what her attorneys plan to ask the judge tomorrow.
Hands off! In a part of the city that's become a magnet for political protest, more than a dozen politicians tonight held one of their own.
If they can do this to an attorney general of a state like New York, heaven help the rest of us, because they can come after anyone.
Governor Hochul leading a rally supporting New York Attorney General Letitia James, who tomorrow will turn herself into federal court in Virginia, indicted by President Trump's Justice Department. James became Trump's sworn enemy after she prosecuted his family for fraud and won. Now her attorneys are signaling they'll challenge the appointment of the U.S. attorney who indicted her. Lindsay Halligan is Trump's former personal lawyer. He handpicked her for the role after forcing out her predecessor when he decided there was no case against James. So the president changed the prosecutor.
It looks to me like she's very guilty of something.
The case hinges on a loan James took out on a property in Virginia. She's accused of misleading the bank on how she'd use the home.
It's baseless. It's nothing more than retribution. Retribution for basically doing my job.
Excuse me, what? So what it sounds like to me is, excuse her fraud, let's throw the case out altogether because we believe the appointment of the prosecutor handling the case is invalid. Unbelievable. And by the way, James Comey is making the same play.
Lawyers representing former FBI Director James Comey are asking a federal judge to dismiss the criminal charges he's currently facing. In motions filed yesterday, Comey's attorneys argue the U.S. attorney who brought the case against him, Lindsay Halligan, was unlawfully appointed. They also contend Comey is being unfairly targeted because of President Trump's, quote, personal spite against him.
But let's stay focused. Why does this matter? Because the prosecutor's legitimacy is foundational. If there is a credible argument that Halligan was improperly appointed, it raises the question, was this case brought through fair and proper channels, or is this justice by political design? Here's what we know. Halligan is reported to have no prior prosecutorial experience. The previous U.S. attorney reportedly declined to bring charges, and shortly afterwards, Halligan was appointed, and we see an indictment. You can connect the dots of what critics will say, but I am here for the overdue accountability. So go Lindsay Halligan. But let's move on to her recent headlines yesterday. A federal raid on vendors in Manhattan Canal Street, 9 immigrants from African nations were arrested, and reporters say that 4 U.S. citizens were held for nearly 24 hours without charges. And in response, Letitia James launched a reporting portal inviting New Yorkers to submit videos, photos, and tips of federal immigration enforcement through her office. She said, quote, every New Yorker has the right to live without fear or intimidation.
Democrats are trying to launch what they're calling a master ICE tracker, but Republicans may block it before it even gets out of the gate. The move would keep tabs on federal ICE agents and track every single instance that takes place within communities. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons was having none of it, saying this kind of thing encourages violence.
The fact that that he wants to put a target on ICE agents' back, so be it. But he shouldn't hide behind the fact that he wants to make his community safe. We've already seen from the Dallas shooting that apps like those are like giving a map to a hitman. So he's not protecting his community. He's putting the men and women in law enforcement at risk.
While Attorney General Pam Bondi also firing back at the move, writing on X, quote, "Shutdown Democrats are already refusing to pay our law enforcement agents now. Representative Garcia and Senator Blumenthal are trying to put ICE agents at risk just for doing their jobs. The DOJ has zero tolerance for violence against law enforcement. We will prosecute anyone who assaults our agents." And in New York, Attorney General, get this, Letitia James urging residents to share photos and videos of federal immigration enforcement actions in the state following the ICE raids on Canal Street earlier this week. James writing, quote, "If you witnessed and documented ICE activity yesterday, I urge you to share that footage with my office. We are committed to reviewing these reports and assessing any violations of the law. No one should be subject to unlawful questioning, detention, or intimidation." And Cheryl, here's that form that Letitia James wants people to fill out right here. Amazing.
So let that sink in. The state's top cop, who's facing her own criminal case, is now asking regular people to watch, record, and report on federal agents.
Chaos in the streets of New York City as angry crowds surrounded federal agents Tuesday in Lower Manhattan. Agents descended on Canal Street in Chinatown, targeting street vendors allegedly selling designer knockoffs. As protesters made their way to the Federal Plaza to demand the release of ICE detainees, more agents arrived, armed in combat gear and a military vehicle.
In my opinion, a few things stand out. First, law and order matters. If someone is undocumented and has criminal history, enforcement is right. The DHS says this was intelligence driven. Second, when a state AG who is already under scrutiny steps in with a portal to monitor federal agents, that flips the dynamic. Who oversees the overseer? What happens when checks and balances become political theater? Third, the optics are especially problematic given the earlier two stories. The person making the call to monitor enforcement is herself under federal indictment and challenging how that indictment came to be. Is that oversight, or is it another layer of power in motion? Letitia James is screaming that the investigation into me are baseless. It's nothing but political retribution for simply doing my job. But at the same time, she's against federal law enforcement doing their jobs. Now, how does that make any sense? Is her job more important than theirs, or does she feel a major sense of entitlement? At the end of the day, we're looking at the reconnected stories, the mortgage fraud case, the fight over who's allowed to prosecute it, and the push to monitor federal agents. All of them tied together, and they raise a deeper question. Who holds the powerful to the same rules? The phrase, "no one is above the law," only matters if the law applies equally. If you're an elected official who prosecute others, you must accept the same scrutiny. When you claim moral authority, the standard you hold to others becomes the standard that you are judged by. But what do you think? Do you think the prosecutor's appointment challenge is a real legal issue or just a delay tactic? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if honest commentary brings you value, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.